Good evening. Welcome to the school board work session for Wednesday, February 4th. Ms. Tanner, could you please call the roll?
Yes, Basine?
Here.
DeCalagero?
Here.
Martin? Paulson?
Here.
Slaughter?
Present.
Thomas?
Here.
Buffalo.
Here. We're going to go ahead and get started because I can't wait to hear Dr. Pohl's presentation. So, Dr. Pohl, I'm going to turn it over to you.
All right. Thank you, Madam Chair. Good evening, Madam Chair Buffalo, Vice Chair DeCalagero, members of the school board, and members of our community, both present and online. This afternoon, I'm presenting the superintendent's proposed budget for fiscal year 26-27. This proposal reflects our continued commitment to equity and excellence for all while navigating declining enrollment, the end of the federal pandemic relief, and rising operational costs. I want to thank our budget team, executive leadership, principals, teachers, and staff who helped shape this proposal. Your dedication and input have been invaluable. This afternoon, I'll walk you through how this budget aligns to our strategic plan and school board goals, review the budget development process, highlight enrollment and financial context, explain our FY27 funding priorities, and outline next steps for public engagement and board action. This budget proposal is grounded in our strategic plan, which focuses on student excellence, workforce, resources, community, and safety and climate. Every recommendation of this budget was evaluated through that lens, as well as the lens of the mission and the board goals that helped anchor this proposal. Specifically, this budget is intentionally aligned to the 4 core outcome goals adopted by the board: increasing third grade reading proficiency, improving reading outcomes for Black students, reducing achievement gaps across student subgroups, and expanding access to advanced academic pathways culminating in advanced studies diplomas. As I move through the budget priorities this evening, I'll explicitly connect major investments back to these goals so it's clear how dollars are supporting outcomes. The FY27 budget development process began in the fall. Departments received guidance aligned to board goals in the strategic plan. Chiefs worked with their teams to develop budgets for each division. Leadership met with the elementary and secondary principal associations, the teacher forum, the teacher senate to garner input for the budget development. Following the initial development, budget requests were again reviewed with chiefs, principals, and teacher groups. Board members were also offered individual meetings to participate in the development process and to provide feedback prior to the final proposal being completed. We continue to closely monitor the governor's proposed biennial budget as it was released in December and will likely continue to change as it progresses through the legislators and to our newly appointed governor. This afternoon, I'm formally presenting the FY27 proposed budget in March, and we will hold a public hearing at the school board, and the school board will consider adoption of this proposed budget during the March business meeting. By April 1st, the board's proposal must be submitted to City Council, with final adoption following the city's appropriation in late spring. Beyond statutory requirements, we engaged principals, teachers, and board members through small group discussions and forums. This input directly influenced staffing priorities, school-based supports, and our approach to right sizing. Additionally, we held an initial public hearing on November 12th to garner community input. The total proposed FY27 budget across all funds is $642.9 million. The general fund totals $472 million, which represents our core operating budget. School nutrition, grants, and capital improvement funds make up the remainder. As you will see later in this presentation, the capital improvement funds represent a budget of needs that goes beyond the typically allotted amount requested and funded by the city. Our general fund revenue is primarily driven by the Commonwealth and the city of Norfolk. State funding represents about 59%, or $279 million. City funding is 37.6%, or $177.2 million, with limited federal and other resources. Importantly, $10.2 million of this budget relies on one-time reversion and true-up funding. Enrollment remains our single largest financial driver. While our total student population has declined, the needs of our students have increased, particularly in special education, English learner services, and social emotional supports. This mismatch creates structural pressure on our budget. This proposed budget balances three priorities: protecting classrooms, maintaining safety and operations, and honoring our workforce while acknowledging that we cannot fund everything we know our students and staff need. The FY27 general fund totals $472 million, a $21.7 million increase over the FY26 adopted budget. However, if you recall, when compared to the revised 2026 budget that we revised in August of $460 million, the increase is only $11.95 million, much of which is absorbed by compensation benefits and inflationary costs within this proposed budget. Over the past several years, Norfolk Public Schools has made significant investments using federal relief funds, particularly in early literacy, tutoring, and instructional supports, directly tied to board goals 2, 3, and 4. These included high doses of tutoring, instructional software, expanded literacy, professional development, and additional intervention staff. Over the 5-year period, we have hired approximately 1,500 tutors, spent $53.7 million for social emotional outreaches, improved school security with $20.5 million, expanded professional development, expanded our EL services with the addition of 51 total new staff members over 5 years, and increased budgeting for improving services for students with disabilities to support some of our most vulnerable students across our population. Many of these investments produced gains, especially in early grades and among historically underserved students. However, the federal funding that supported them has ended, making it critical that we preserve the most effective strategies within our operating budget. Those one-time funds also allowed us to make several upgrades to our technology infrastructure, HVAC systems in 26 schools, and the installation of new roofs, windows, and doors at 17 of our schools. For FY27, we focused on 5 priorities: employee compensation, recruitment and retention, right-sizing the division, safety and facilities, and instructional and social emotional supports for students. These priorities respond to real challenges: declining enrollment, teacher shortages, aging facilities, ongoing learning gaps, and increasing mental health needs among students. This budget increases the starting salary to $61,289 for new teachers and provides a 2% step in COLA, or cost of living adjustment, for all teachers, administrators, classified, and part-time staff. Compensation remains essential to retaining staff in a competitive labor market. The proposal also makes necessary adjustments for the change in school board salaries that's to begin in January of 2027. Although there has not been an increase to NPS employees' health insurance premiums since FY 2023, based on current information, there's an expectation of a modest increase beginning in January of 2027 that's currently not able to be met within the current budget proposal. So I'd like to again mention the continued rise in health care coverage across the nation and seen in other divisions across the region is going to start hitting Norfolk Public Schools. Again, there has not been an increase to NPS employees since FY23. However, based on current information, there is an expectation of a modest increase beginning in January 2027 that is currently not able to be met within the proposed budget. As we work with the consortium to finalize the rate for 2027, we will keep all employees updated on any potential increases, with final amounts being communicated prior to contracts being released this year. Overall, $388 million, or 82.2% of the operating budget, is dedicated to salaries and benefits. This underscores that our budget is fundamentally about people. With a continued focus on employee recruitment and retention, this directly supports board goals 2, 3, and 4 because sustained improvements in literacy and achievement gaps require stable, highly effective, and fully licensed teachers, especially in early grades and in high-need schools. We continue 7 recruitment incentive programs, including bonuses for new teachers, returning teachers, and internal pathways from classified roles to become teachers. These incentives are targeted to reduce vacancies, limit instructional disruption, and retain strong teachers in literacy. The recommended allocation for this is $588,000. We also continue stipends for PBIS, wellness champions, class coverage, and plan to provide a continuity of excellence bonus for teachers impacted by school closures. These stipends recognize additional work and support stability during the transitions that we'll face in the upcoming years with the closure and consolidation plan. Additional investments include recruitment advertising, the continuation of our tuition reimbursement program with an emphasis on dual enrollment certification support, and these strategies strengthen our long-term workforce pipeline and support, again, board goals 2, 3, 4, and 5. As we're aware, right-sizing is not simply a facilities decision. It is focused on improving student achievement by improving how the division utilizes resources, which is tied to board goals 2, 3, and 4. Operating underutilized buildings diverts resources away from instruction, from intervention, and from academic supports. By right-sizing our footprint, we are intentionally redirecting dollars towards early literacy, special education services, tutoring, transportation, and school-based staffing supports that most directly influence reading and math proficiency and address achievement gaps. This proposed budget reprograms funding from following the board-approved plan that includes the repurposing of one school and the closure of 2 additional schools during FY27. In FY27, Phase 1 includes repurposing Ocean Air Elementary to become an early childhood center and closing Norview Elementary and Willoughby Early Childhood Center, with careful transition planning for students and staff. This would begin the consolidations efforts and remove the additional costs of maintaining the 2 schools that we're closing. The estimated savings of $1.7 million from Phase 1 of the consolidation plan are strategically reinvested in ways that advance the board goals. 5 additional bus drivers to ensure consistent attendance and access to instruction, directly affecting Goal 4. 3 additional security officers to be placed in elementary schools to maintain safe learning environments that support student focus and engagement. 3 additional behavior specialists and 1 additional social worker, and special education contract services that reduce barriers to learning, which directly affects Goals 3 and 4. School furniture and classroom readiness investments that support effective instruction, particularly in our early grades, which is Goal 2. And as an additional note, with the continued growth of the percentage of our population of students with disabilities, and I want to point this out, because even though we have a declining student population, the students with disabilities have gone from 11.4% of our population in school year 21 to 17.7% of our population in SY 26. So you see there are ample needs for the funding that we're asking for in this proposed budget. There's a need to continue to increase our special education funding. As noted within the consolidation timeline presented to the board in December, we will work with all schools in Phase 2 plans beginning in April of this school year to finalize their timelines to prepare for transitions in SY 28. This includes community meetings, public hearings, and a board vote on redistricting for the next phase of the plan we're already planning for. Although there have been multiple requests to have security assistance in all elementary schools, the current budget proposal cannot support that funding. However, this proposal maintains recent security investments and adds 3 elementary level security officers to begin the process of adding security officers to all of our schools. This proposal also continues investments in cameras, access control, and building maintenance. This priority is directly aligned to board goals 2, 3, 4, and 5. We continue investments in high-dosage tutoring with a continued partnership with university instructors to accelerate student achievement, the International Welcome Center in English Learner Supports to ensure equitable access to grade-level instruction for all students, McKinney-Vento Transportation to maintain school stability for students experiencing homelessness, Equity and Excellence Learning Centers that provide wraparound academic and social emotional supports in targeted schools. Each of these investments is designed to close gaps, improve literacy outcomes, and expand access to advanced academic pathways. Some new instructional investments for FY27 are explicitly tied to board goals. Additional behavior specialists and a social worker to reduce instructional disruption and increase time on task with goals 3 and 4. Expanded special education contract services to ensure students receive mandated supports necessary for academic progress, goals 2, 3, and 4. Additional preschool staffing to strengthen early learning foundations that feed directly into 3rd grade literacy outcomes, our goal 2. additional bus drivers to ensure students are transported on time for the start of the instructional day, and the start of a centrally managed school furniture budget to ensure classrooms are instruction-ready across the division. And that was a direct reflection from input from our principals about the need for classroom furniture. To balance the budget, there was a need to make difficult decisions on reductions. This includes the elimination of one chief position at the central office, reducing certain operating accounts across central administration budgets. I want to repeat that. Reducing certain operation budget accounts across central administration accounts. Delaying the document digitization project, and phasing out the Ignite pilot program at Lindenwood Elementary School. Due to the school closures, 18 non-instructional positions are being eliminated. Importantly, no employees will be laid off as a result of this consolidation, as we've stated before. All impacted staff will be reassigned through vacancies and attrition. Other positions, such as the reading and math specialists and the gifted resource teacher positions, are being retained in the budget to create opportunities to increase supports at schools with the highest needs, which again supports board goals 2, 3, and 4. In total, the proposed FY27 budget fund is $472 million, an increase of $11.95 million over the FY26 budget. Even with these investments, there are unmet needs that would further accelerate progress toward board goals if resources were available. These include larger raises for teacher assistants, more substantial raises for teachers, and retention bonuses for current staff to stabilize the instructional workforce in literacy-critical areas, adding security officers at each elementary school, adding paraprofessionals in all kindergarten classrooms to support early literacy, Goal 2, expanded tutoring and mental health staffing to further close achievement gaps, Goal 3 and 4, increased dual enrollment support to expand access to advanced coursework and improve advanced studies diploma attainment, Goal 5, additional social workers, and a larger budget for school furniture. These needs remain central to support our teachers and students and should guide future budget recommendations. With an overview of the proposed budget by category on this slide, salaries and benefits dominate expenditures with 82% of the proposed budget, followed by other operating costs and technology with remaining 18%. This reflects a people-centered budget. Additionally, over 71% of the general fund spending in the proposed budget supports instructional programs. This demonstrates our commitment to protecting classrooms, with operations and maintenance holding 11.6% of the budget, administration, attendance, and health with 6.2%, technology and pupil transportation each having 4.3%, and facilities with 1.8% of the budget. The budget is balanced through state, city, and one-time funds that include reversion funds and true-up funds. As seen on this slide, there were increases in state, city, and reversion funds with declines in federal and other local and miscellaneous funds. The total increase of $11.9 million, which was utilized mainly for salaries and benefits, with a minimal amount spread across other budgetary items. One-time funds of just over $10 million are being requested in this budget to be utilized to offer continued student support with extensive tutoring that includes early literacy instruction that supports board goals 2, 3, and 4, instructional software and behavior supports, which all are critical services that we're working to sustain within the local budget as we continue budget processes through the future. This slide shows a variety of examples for salary adjustments within the proposed budget. As seen in the chart in the upper right-hand side, every example shows the proposed budget increases employee pay more than compared to just the step adjustment. So the 2% raise is higher than just the natural step. Additionally, teachers at the top of the scale are included in the 2% increase. As I wrap up the proposed budget, I will finish with the request for capital improvement funds. Traditionally, the city provides Norfolk Public Schools with $1 million for bus replacements and $3 million for deferred maintenance. Although we're appreciative of funding provided by the city, the amount of CIP funding leaves our facilities needing additional improvements each year. Therefore, we're requesting an increase of deferred maintenance to $17 million and an increase of debt service from the anticipated $65.5 million for the Maury High School project to a total of $76.5 million. The requested amount would allow for us to continue with the Maury High School project, add a natatorium to the Maury High School project, continue with the bus replacements, add HVAC replacements to 5 schools, and renovate the pool at Camp Young that is currently unusable. These projects reflect our commitment to safe, functional, and modern learning environments. As seen on this slide, NPS has dedicated funds this current school year to support roof replacements, door replacements, the addition of security vestibules, electrical upgrades, turf fields, and the start of the rebuilding of Maury High School. Our next steps include the public hearing on March 4th, a board vote on March 18th, and then city council consideration, and then the final adoption later this spring following the city council's final appropriations. I believe this is a disciplined, student-centered budget developed under real constraints that continues to support the division's strategic plan and the board's goals to ensure we're focusing on the needs of all of our students. I would again like to thank the multitude of people that were involved in the process of developing this budget. And prior to moving to the question and answer portion, I'd like to ask Ms. Skinner, our Executive Director of Budget, and her team to please stand and be recognized for their hard work and dedication with assisting with this budget proposal.
Stand up. Oh, wow. Take the village.
And finally, I appreciate the board's partnership and welcome questions and discussion at this time.
So before we, I know this is, we're going to have questions beyond today, right? So we'll have some questions, and then we're going to create a process where if you have any additional questions, we're going to consolidate those questions for Dr. Pohl and give those to him so he can respond to those at a later time, because we'll be here all night if we're giving him questions. But I do want to open up for immediate questions from board members. So we can start with Ms. D. Calogero and just work our way around that way. Okay? It was? Okay. Okay, then we can start with Colonel Polson if you have any
I'm
questions.
sure it hasn't been included in this, but the city council just had a retreat. And there was some discussion on budgets and future allocations. Hopefully that will be emphasized and brought to us, because I'm not sure, I haven't reviewed that process of what they did and what they said, but I'm sure that there's something that will help us in there.
And Colonel Paulson, there's a meeting scheduled currently with the city manager and myself on Monday of next week to discuss.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Good.
discuss that.
All right. Thank you.
All right, Ms. Basine?
Thank you, Dr. Pohl and team for the work, the thorough presentation of your proposed budget for this year. And just for my colleagues, just so everyone knows what it is, we had our one-on-one, and I appreciate the opportunity to share thoughts around the budget development. And with that, my push, as has always been, has been around centering the budget in alignment with the goals, and how we're going to accomplish the goals that we have set, the four outcome goals, also while honoring the non-negotiables that we've put in place. So, and I appreciate the connections that have been made in this budget related to those goals and non-negotiables. There are areas that I still have questions around in terms of not just tying it to those goals, but how are we going to really advance outcomes, like advance progress towards those goals? And that is something that I am still unclear on, but I hope through further conversations and dialogue that will become clearer to me. One area that I spoke about with Dr. Pohl was, a strategy that came up in progress monitoring was around the high-dose tutoring, which Dr. Pohl has included in this budget. The question around the 6.5 million is that a decrease from what we've been spending? And if it is, what impact that will have on accomplishing the goals around literacy? And so if you could speak to that a little more, I'd like to hear.
So the total tutoring budget is 8.5 million. 2 of that million is for our early literacy program to continue. That's strong and in effect, and we don't want to touch that at all. The 6.5 million, that is what we used with university instructors this year. That's what we contracted with. We're not fully through the year, so I'm not sure where our final expenses will be on that. However, it does reduce some. We did contract with another company that was an online-only platform, not a face-to-face, that covered different high school courses. It wasn't tutor.com, but there was another one. And I don't have the final dollar amount of where we are right now with that, but there is a decrease with that we may have to balance out.
Because that seemed, what I felt like I was hearing through our progress monitoring sessions was the impact that was where we were seeing the greatest impact.
Correct. And the UI is where absolutely we are, because that's face-to-face, small group or
Right.
one-on-one, so we didn't touch that. We weren't able to increase it, so you saw it was on the list still of what we need, but we did leave that level where we had a fear at one point we might have to decrease that.
Right. And leaving it level is a concern because it has been so impactful. And so one of the things that I continue to advocate for is a way of reducing in other areas where we haven't seen that kind of impact, to put more investment in those face-to-face instructional strategies that you have found to be beneficial. Especially, and I say that especially for, and I appreciate you talking about our needs with special education. And I say that because I see the additional funds there, the 400,000, I think, but, in the monthly financial reports, we've seen like 1.6 million, of additional. So my question is still, are we still allocating what we need?
So remember, some of that, when we're overspent in the contract services, is that we've had to hire teachers we haven't been able to hire. So we still have that funding in the staffing funds.
Okay.
To be able to cover that difference. But our goal is, it'd be better if we can hire our teachers and hire the specialists we need to support our students with disability.
Okay.
It's better for our students, it's also more affordable. So the funding's still there, it's just in a different category. So you'll see transfers as we go through the year once we get closer to a need to transfer for those to cover them. So they are still there. And as far as the UI tutors, another thing to recall is, even as we leave that level right now, as we consolidate schools, it will actually increase the number of tutors per school, because we'll be able to move around tutors that are there. And I know per student it's still about the same, but with a declining student enrollment, it does increase because we're keeping that level. So we're able to reposition tutors around to higher need. For instance, at Ocean Air in Norview, I think one has 2 UI tutors, one has 3 UI tutors. So those 5 tutors, some may follow the students, but a couple may be able to go to schools with higher needs. So that's also part of the thought process when we're consolidating and keeping certain things level, like the staffing for reading specialists, math specialists, GRTs, being able to use those positions and those funds to be able to accelerate those areas of higher need.
Okay. And connecting my comments to the redistricting consolidation process. So, and I guess that was an area that, and I like how you broke it down in the budget book. But for me, the concern is also around the equity and the level up opportunities for our students. Because as you know, with a majority of the schools that we're consolidating and moving, we're moving off-track schools to off-track schools. And the supports there, to me, and I hear what you're saying about, putting them together in that building, but it's, do we have the right supports? Do we need more supports? What do we need to do? Because we know that whenever we make these kinds of changes, not we, but in general, and the research shows that you do see a decline in academic performance when you, that's just part of, what we can anticipate. So in anticipation of that, what additional supports, like how do we increase the supports there? And that's what I'd like to see us, put investment around that, so.
And that's where you'll see with the positions that we've held, we'll be able to overstaff in areas where we need it by following the data. Additionally, we actually had a meeting with all the principals involved with Phase 1 consolidations today to talk about staffing and just, all of the questions they have right now. And one of the points that came up is, one of the principals feels, next year, she's really excited because she feels like she's going to have fully certified staff next year. Because, she might be running classes right now of 13, 14 in certain grade levels that next year will be at 20, 22. So there will be a little bit less staffing, but she truly believes next year will be the first year in a long time she'll have a fully certified staff. And I think that's what we'll see more of within the consolidation process, which, as we all know, the research says if you have a fully certified trained teacher in front of students, you're going to get the best results. So then add that with the supports we already have in place, and it's going to be even stronger. So I think through this process, all of that coming together is what's really going to be the winning solution for our students.
Dr. Paul, and I have a few other questions, but I'm going to ask one more, and then I'm going to let others go, and then if we have a time, come back. So you talked about staffing at the schools, and I think you call it continuity of excellence stipends, and I know we have this whole bonus structure in place. But what is still seems unclear to me is the schools that we know where we have, and we're going to keep bringing this up, the higher teacher vacancy rates, which are not part of our school consolidation plans, but still have seen those really high teacher vacancy rates where we need certified teachers in those classrooms as well as soon as possible, like yesterday. How are we, what I don't see is the strategic incentivization of staffing at those schools, like where that is going to be. How are we doing that?
So I had a very late aha moment, and I'll admit that. I had it today when I was in the principal's meeting. One of the things that we've done with the continuity of excellence stipend for teachers being displaced, connected it to them moving to a school where their students are moving. However, we've budgeted enough, and I'll confirm with on this before she throws something at me, but we have budgeted enough for all of the teachers to be in that. However, we know all the teachers won't be able to move to a school where their students are moving to. So my thought today was to use the remaining funds to say if you go to a school struggling with staffing, to do the same bonus for those teachers.
Okay.
Help with that.
Okay, and that was going to be something I was going to advocate around, and I think a comment that was made at last week's, one of the community meetings, I thought that was a great comment about, the unintended consequence, I thought there were good points were raised around that, so I appreciate that. So I'm going to defer the rest of mine and let my colleagues go, and.
And the questions I had, you answered, but then Ms. Bazine also answered them, so I'm good for now.
All right.
Thank you, though. Thank you for the work that you all did, because those numbers, I feel like I need Tylenol right now. It's a lot of work.
Miss Ash,
I'm good.
you don't have any questions? Okay. Not around technology? No. Young people in technology. Ms. Chandler-Webb? This time? Okay. Ms. Thomas?
No question.
Well,
Dr. Martin?
I was really, I agree with Tanya on what she was saying. We really need to focus on incentivizing so that we have certified teachers in the classrooms that aren't currently there. Kind of things, we have to get that done.
I just have a comment. I'll defer on questions, but am I looking around at other board meetings? We're not would this put us, you said this put us at the top of the starting?
It'll put us, I think it's second place. I think Portsmouth is higher than us.
Yeah, I think Portsmouth is higher all across the board
are.
now. They're at the top all the way across.
I will say to that vein, though, another division did a presentation, and they had us incorrectly slated at the top. and I've let that division know that the
Right.
data they showed was incorrect. That
Okay.
even when we get to the higher paid salaries, we're top 3 in the higher paid right now. We have a strong compensation scale already, and our goal is to keep it strong.
Right.
And then, on compensation also, I know our governor has gone on record saying that one of her goals is to bring our teacher salary up to natural average, which would be 5.8% per year over 3 years. So as we're expecting, there could be possible changes in the future too.
Well, like I said before, board members will have a process. If you have any additional questions, we're going to consolidate them and get them to Dr. Pohl for answers. Okay? That works for everyone? Yes? No? Okay, maybe, all right.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
when would you like those questions submitted and?
Tomorrow, I'll have a Google Doc for you all to put them in, ready for tomorrow. You can start loading them up. And Dr. Pohl, I'll include you in that so you can see them as they're coming in. Is that okay with everyone?
Yes, thank you.
Then everyone can see, so there won't be any duplicates of that nature, okay? All right. Okay, well, thank you for that. We're going to move on to 3.01, school improvement grant applications.
All right, thank you. And as Ms. McGarrity's coming up to walk through these with you guys, I want to emphasize this is a new process from the VDOE this year. We've had SIG funds, school improvement grant. You've heard SIG funds, that statement before. We've had SIG funds for many years. And this is the first year where the VDOE has said that for our CSI schools, that the board has to see the grants, that we have to present them to the board. There's no voting required on them. So after tonight, the CSI schools will submit those applications to the VDOE. Applications are due this Friday. However, we've consulted with the VDOE because of the timeline that we had. For the TSI schools, the board does need to approve the applications for those. If, following this presentation this afternoon, or questions and answers, if the board is comfortable approving those TSI, we can move quicker with those. If not, we'll have it on the consent agenda for the 18th or decision agenda for the 18th for the business meeting. However, just as a reminder, the sooner we have these filed, the sooner we get the funding. And as with all federal funds this year, everything has been delayed for us getting it. However, the spending deadline is not delayed. So, no matter what, whenever we get these, the cutoff
Timeline
date
is,
is September 30th, whether we get them March 1st, April 1st, or May 1st. So there is a sense of urgency to these applications. Thank you. And Ms. McGarrity, take it away.
Okay, thank you. There are a lot of, just to orient you real quick to documents, there are a lot of documents attached. We're going to kind of hang in the overview section, but really a lot of me talking, unfortunately, to you guys about what's going on, and then we can pop around if we need to look at different things. So good evening, Chair Moore Buffalo, Vice Chair DeCalagero, board members, Dr. Pohl, and those joining here and at home. Myself and Jerry Smith, Ms. Smith wave. So we have the pleasure of supporting the schools through the SIG process at this time. And this afternoon, we're going to talk about VDOE school improvement application process for the school improvement grant, which we also call the SIG grant, for funding for our federally identified schools. As a quick review, the schools that we currently have that are federally identified are 5 continuing comprehensive support and improvement schools, which we also call CSI schools. Those are Chesterfield Elementary, J. Cox Elementary, Lake Taylor School, Richard Bowling Elementary, and Ruffner School. We also have 2 newly identified comprehensive support and improvement schools, which are also called CSI schools, which are PB Young Elementary and Coleman Place Elementary. And finally, we have 9 targeted support and improvement schools, which are our TSI schools. They're Bayview Elementary, Granby Elementary, Ingleside, James Monroe, Norview Elementary, Sherwood Forest, Southside STEM Academy at Camp Estella, Tanners Creek Elementary, and Willard Elementary. As a reminder, the TSI schools are all identified for the student group, students with disabilities, with Bayview also being identified for English learners and Norview Elementary for Hispanic students as well. We're bringing this to you, as Dr. Pohl mentioned, with a pretty quick turnaround time. Typically, we receive all information in the fall for federal identifications, and SIG application requirements soon follow. Generally, there is more time for review and completion of the requirements. However, this year we received them the second week of January with an original due date, as Dr. Pohl mentioned, of February 6th to VDOE, which is this coming Friday. VDOE has given us an extension based on our school board meeting schedule to allow for the review and the approval process to play out. Once information was received from VDOE, we immediately trained the principals. We met with them the day after. Everybody jumped in and held full and partial day work sessions to complete the SIG requirements so that we could review the items with you all tonight. We were very appreciative of the principals and their leadership teams. They all jumped in and got the work done. CSI schools were required to complete a school needs assessment, a multi-year school plan, which is a 3-year plan, and the SIG application. Newly CSI schools will complete all of the listed requirements except the application during their initial planning year. TSI schools only were required to complete the SIG application. The reason we were all of those pieces, but we were able to turn this around pretty quickly, is that understanding that schools must plan in a targeted manner, Dr. Pohl and the executive directors for schools mandated that all schools complete a school needs assessment and a comprehensive school improvement plan, which is the CSSP, this past summer. So for going into the 25 and 26 school year. Since these steps were already completed, VDOE allowed us to use the needs assessment and TSI schools to continue to work from their CSSPs. CSI schools did need to complete the multi-year plan, but were able to quickly convert from the CSSP to the MSSP just by benchmarking out from 1 year, which the CSSP is 1 year, to 3 years. You'll notice on the agenda item that there are MSSPs attached for each of our CSI schools for your review. The MSSPs are very similar to the CSSPs. Differences are things like 3-year goals versus 1-year goals. Action steps are 3-year plans versus the 1-year plan on the CSSP. The areas are not specific domains on the MSSPs, but they reflect each indicator of the SPSF. The foundation of the plans are similar because they both require goal setting, action steps, intended outcomes, and EBIs. CSI schools are required to have 4 EBIs, and we're going to talk about what EBIs are in a second, and having at least one of them being a tier 1 of evidence. And TSI schools are required to have 2, one of which has to be tier 1 evidence. Really, the goals and the EBIs are the meat and potatoes of the plans. So first, let's talk about what EBIs are for a minute, though. EBIs basically are evidence-based interventions that are teaching practices or programs that have clear, consistent proof that they work, which is shown through multiple high-quality studies and real-world results with students. These practices have been tried, measured, and shown to improve learning outcomes. EBIs are a bit different than research-based interventions, and the two should not be confused. Federally identified schools are required to use evidence-based interventions, or the EBIs, versus research-based by ESSA, especially if funding is being used. For the EBIs, the What Works Clearinghouse and or evidence for ESSA websites are what were used by the schools to review EBIs and select what may work for their population. Any EBIs implemented in Norfolk schools are also vetted by the associated departments to ensure appropriate implementation, and that those EBIs aren't going to negate something else that's already going on. So, for example, reading EBIs are all vetted by the English department, math by the math department. An overarching statement about the EBIs for the CSI schools and TSI schools support plans and application there are 4, I've put at the bottom of this overview document, there are multiple EBIs where we typically are finding. They are the most used EBIs. However, the first 4 are the 2 that are going to be reading, and then 2 that are math, and you will find those on all of our elementary and middle schools. So those are all vetted by our English department, our math department, and they are going to be replicated on every single CSSP as well as the new MSSPs as well. One of the changes by VDOE to the SIG application process is that the applications and any required documents must be presented to local school boards prior to submitting to VDOE for funding approval and disbursement. For CSI schools, once the applications are reviewed, we're able to submit to VDOE for their final process and approval from there. For TSI schools, the school board must approve before we submit to the VDOE. The funding amounts being applied for are $165,500 for CSI schools, which must be spent by September 2027. So that is because they are on that, the CSI is a 3-year cycle. They have pushed that out. It's still not 3 years. It's about a year and a few months where the money has to be encumbered. And and $45,100 for TSI schools, which must be spent by September 2026. So please keep in mind, this is essentially only 7 months, including the summer months. So it is it's tight. Again, had we received this from the state back in the fall, we'd have the full year and that kind of thing. But we really did work with the principals as we were thinking through things that with this kind of stop, drop, and roll of this, like what does that look like and what are those things? And in the midst of all the budget work, we have met with budget. Ms. Brew is over here who helps us a lot to kind of figure out how can we move these things along so things that are needed can happen quickly. So in addition to the MSSPs and SIG overview document, you'll also find attached, there should be 3 applications that have been prepared for VDOE. They are in PDF format because we were having a fight with it for multiple days to get it to go anywhere. But those applications are there, but they are really information moved from the MSSP or CSSP over to the application. For continuing CSI schools, and if we are on the overview document, beginning on page 1, the MSSP 3-year goals in each area are listed, as well as the types of budget items that are needed to implement the work of the EBIs. The EBIs are on the actual MSSP document and application for review as well. For newly CSI schools, which begins on the overview document around page 13, the planning year activities required by VDOE and any division level requirements are included, as well as the budget items to support planning and current EBI work. For TSI schools, which begin around page 14, the EBI is listed on the SIG application, as well as the types of budget items needed to implement the work of the EBIs. As a big general overview statement, there's lots of little things also that are in the budget piece, but with the budget examples that are being requested are really additional tutors. So you're talking about that high dosage tutoring earlier, so really looking at tutors. We've even talked to, it's not the only thing, but we've even talked to UI, where because all of our TSI schools are identified for students with disabilities, even I had being a former special ed teacher, we talked about, hey, like, I need people who are not certified but have some kind of training or background on how do we look at this differently. They have learning gaps, and some of it is due to disability. We need to look at how we're also tutoring a little different. So they agreed that they'd be able to honor that. We just need to let them know which schools. Things are also teacher pay for remediation programs. We have some wanting to do Saturday programs, some after-school professional development for teachers. So because we do have such a novice staff across the division, especially, and not really any more focused on this, but this is a perfect opportunity to get more training for the teachers and special ed teachers. So again, an area if they're associate or if they're provisional, they're early on in their in school for that. So this is that perfect opportunity, and with the collaborative teams for students. Some are also most are looking at doing also like power planning sessions, so that they are able to really dig into their data and things like that. So they would be paying people to stay, whether it be after or other times, so they're not doing that while students are there at school, and they're able to do this at a separate time, but really have the time to dig in and work through. Notice there are goals in ELA, which is reading and writing on all of them, math, science, and chronic absenteeism. Some of them are going to also have history and maybe a couple other areas, but generally speaking, those are the areas that you're going to find. Their elementaries were really weighted on that elementary side. So with that piece of it, those are really the areas of the SPSF. These are all areas that require improvement for their outcomes. So just as some examples of EBIs, so on the elementaries, what you'll see, and really the K-8s also, or 3-8s, is that for ELA, for the reading area, is that there might be two EBIs listed. You're going to find a K3 EBI. You're going to find, and it says 4.9, but it really for elementary, it's going to be 4.5. If it's K8, it's going to be 4.8, and that kind of thing. So they're even getting down very specifically to what is needed for the different students at their grade levels. And some are also intervention-based. Some of them are, like we've talked about before, with the Tier 1 instruction, really kind of improving that so that the first thing the kids hear is the good instruction. Those are also linked. Again, in that last page, there are those links. Those are just the most frequently used. The reading and math are pretty much going to be stable. It's those other areas that there are just some different things for different schools. So, and then through this overview document, you're going to find that same pattern. So really, the overview document was to make it as easy as possible for you all to kind of work through what is the meat and the potatoes of the CSSPs, the MSSPs, and what's on the application. And so in addition to all of this, a monitoring process of the CSSPs and now the MSSPs by the division of all schools is required. This work has been in place in Norfolk for a couple years, but was redesigned recently around the SPSF, beginning at the beginning of this school year. The division monitoring meetings are called the ASM meetings, or the Accountability Support Meetings, at each school. All federally identified schools meet more often than the non-identified schools. They review student data outcomes, staff EBI implementation data, maybe from walkthroughs, and many other relevant data points are reviewed, as well as a discussion of any unique needs of the school. In attendance at the ASM meetings is school leadership, division-level staff from multiple departments, and really based off of what the CSSP and MSSP needs are there. This is a process that continues regardless of funding outcomes, since it is what's best for the improvement of student outcomes at our neediest schools. Once we're able to move forward, we'll submit the applications and additional required documents to VDOE for their final review, ensuring funding is awarded to the schools as soon as possible. And at that, I will say thank you, and I can now address any questions.
I'll start. So what I'm hearing is that the CSI applications, which expire September 2027,
Yes.
those are the ones that the board do not have to approve.
You don't have to approve, correct.
The board has to approve the TSI applications, which we got late, normally get them in the fall, but we just received them, and they expire September 2026.
Yes.
These funds can also be used during summer school.
Yes.
So we're going to have a robust,
So we can,
It is common for our SIG grants to be used over the summer as
summer.
well.
Okay,
It is
so
very
that's a
common for-
practice that we.
Yeah, so
okay.
sometimes you'll see a double summer school shift, or sometimes you'll see extended learning activities for students and development for teachers, as well as curriculum and content planning as well. So it's not uncommon for them to be
Okay.
used over the summer, but, this is our opportunity, like we were talking earlier with the budget stuff, to be able to bring in additional tutors to these schools as well to finish out the year even stronger.
Because I don't want to give any money back.
Neither do we.
Right, not a penny.
to add to that, we've also, one of the TSI schools is Norview Elementary, which is closing, but what we've done is that the two schools that the students are going to, they work
Follow.
together. So the money won't follow them, but they are working so that the EBIs they are all using are the same, and the way they're implementing is similar or the same, so that when
They go over to-
when it goes with the kids, the stuff or the understandings of what's happening is going with the kids to the same thing. So they're landing on the other end. So all three schools were there. They all worked together during the work session and really kind of planned that piece out, which we found to be, super helpful, because we don't want to give money back. We don't want to not take money. They're offering us that, especially if it's something that we can help. And same thing, PB Young, even though it's further out, they are CSI schools, but we really talked about those things as the kids are transitioning and those kinds of things, to look at it that way as well.
And so, Dr. Pohl, what I'm hearing is that you're asking the board to approve I'm trying to get all these acronyms.
I know.
Right.
That's what we were.
Yes.
Education,
I
got a
know.
whole lot of acronyms. Okay. So TSI, you're asking for the board to approve it tonight, or the business meeting if we need more time to
Correct. If you're
review.
comfortable, tonight would be most ideal, because that would
you can
speed
get
us up by
started.
2.5 weeks, pretty
Yeah,
much.
okay.
If not, then the business meeting, we have permission from the VDOE to submit by the 20th, which would follow the business meeting.
Okay.
What is the acronym?
I wrote it down.
Targeted
Target
Schools.
Support and Improvement Schools.
And then the other is comprehensive.
And the other was comprehensive.
About 15 of them.
Ms. Basine?
No, we were laughing at the number of acronyms.
And I'm even a special ed
That's
person, and
education.
I was,
Like,
and we
oh
talk in
my
acronyms.
gosh.
And I kept losing, I was like, which one is that? And I was like, wait a minute.
Worse than, yeah.
Yes,
like-
it is,
I think a
APIs.
cheat sheet might have been really
Yes.
helpful today.
yes.
Yeah. But I do have some real questions. So I appreciate the summary document that you provided, because with the goals and the breakdown of what the focus is going to be on. So you have the overarching goals there that are SMART goals, and then each school has their goal, but the goals seem more general. I mean, do they have their own SMART goals?
So they have, I mean, these are their goals, their SMART goals, and this is what we talk about when we go in for the ASM meetings. Some of them will have also, it might be in the intended outcomes, that is a mini SMART goal that is about the smaller pieces. It might be about a particular student group. It might be about, there's staff and student pieces, so kind of what are those intended outcomes that are letting you know things are moving forward. A lot of those are around, so over the summer, because we really were doing just a lot of transfer work and expanding down the road. When we did this over the summer at SLI, it was one of those things, like I brought data and we, with all the schools, to really get targeted in those areas, so that it's like, because CSI really is about the overall school. However, there are still specific student groups that are going to need supports, and maybe more so than another. So those are kind of maybe show up in those little outcome areas versus the big overarching goal. And they looked at it in a couple different ways. They looked at it by student group, but we looked at it like we did in State of the Schools, where it was by the performance level. So all of that data they had to kind of work through. So you might see some that are about moving kids up the performance continuum, because then it's kind of a twofer. We're getting growth movement, and we're also getting performance level movement
Okay,
and
so-
things.
So all of the schools, like the needs assessment piece of it has already
Yes.
taken place?
Yes.
Okay. And and then the funding sources for all the strategies that you have listed out is coming from our operating budget, or are these additional funds that will come
So
as a result
some of
these
them are coming from the
applications?
operating, some are coming from Title I.
Okay.
So we'll see that, and really what it is that if SIG doesn't pay for it, then those are the fallbacks, or until, because right now, even though they've been identified, and if they were continuously identified, they're still kind of out of the funding from the previous year,
Okay, so these strategies are secured, is what?
meaning secured to be paid for?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
I mean, unless one of them says SIG solely, which most of them, and again, we were doing a lot really fast, and I could have missed something, but most of them have more than one funding source,
Okay,
so that
right.
there's the
And-
backup.
And my concern or question is really around if one of those funding sources does not materialize for whatever reason, what's the impact of that, and how do we proactively plan for?
So my understanding is that these are based off their CSSPs, which were developed over the summer and into the fall. So funding is in place for those. The SIG funding is to be able to offer additional support. So what they'd already planned is already funded, but these help expand that, like expanding the tutoring, expanding the professional development, expanding the Saturday sessions for students with the SIG funds. If we don't get the SIG funds, then those won't happen. Generally, if the application's approved, the VDOE will, it's a smooth transfer of funding. And in the past, we've received the SIG funds that we've applied for. There have been very few bumps in the road to it. So it's really a matter of just, because we've been very comprehensive on our applications, with SMART goals showing exactly what we're doing, strategies, using the evidence-based, interventions, everything else that we're required to use, because that's what we should be using. So, and when Ms. McGarrity's been pretty graceful about it, but literally she shut down shop for like a week to work with principals and make sure that this is focused how it needs to be for our students. So generally, once these are submitted and we get the funds, we're able to move forward with it. So this just helps expand what we're doing at those schools, at our highest need schools, honestly.
Okay, okay, I just want to be sure that
Absolutely.
that's all secured. And then the individual school plans that you have, that we have posted here, so those are already complete, like if we vote on them?
So those are the MSSPs, which is what the CSI schools, I know, lots of letters. So the comprehensive schools had to do.
Okay.
And I'm going to try and stop
But
myself
that's
from
not what
letter
we're voting
talking.
on.
But the vote part is the TSI part. We have to review all the CSI pieces, which are the MSSPs and the school documents that are there individually.
Okay,
Those documents, we just, is a review. So
Okay.
that's kind of where part of this is.
okay,
Those have to be reviewed along with that CSI application, is just a review with you guys.
okay,
The
got it.
targeted schools, they're functioning off of their CSPs, which are on their school websites.
Okay,
Those are the ones we did over the summer in our one-year plans.
okay, got it.
And then, so what you would be voting on is the application, which has each school at the bottom for the TSI schools.
Okay.
I know
Got it. No, I got that.
and
part.
those are the EBI part, and all the EBIs are pulled from, I sat up one night, and that's what I did till all night. I was like, I'm getting this done. So, for the schools, so we pulled those over. So we were able to also kind of review them as we were pulling them, because I didn't want to just pull them blindly. So that's what the vote is for the targeted schools.
Targeted and not, okay,
And if the board recalls, this year, we also implemented a more strategic development of our continuous school support plans, the CSSPs, where we actually started that before the end of the school year, rolled it into the Summer Leadership Institute, and then had due dates throughout the summer with conversations, reflections, and feedback back and forth until the final due date. So we were way ahead of the game of where we had been in the past with that. So these are strongly built CSSPs for each of our schools that we're relying on at this point.
They really are working documents, so as they go through, like, the action steps are already in play because it's been in place since we've come into the school year. So any of those, and it really is, like I said, a working document where if something, okay, that's not working, and something seems off, they change it, right? And then kind of repost. So it is always a moving document in that way, because if everything, we say we're working towards this and that is
If it's-
happening, like, we need to move on to the next priority kind of thing, or whatever, or an EBI is not working, or a program we've put in place doesn't seem to be moving the needle, we need to try something different so they can adjust as they go. And that's really what's discussed at those ASM meetings, as well as with principals, DEDs, and the leadership teams. It's just kind of the cyclical event.
you.
Are we still using IXL?
No, we,
Oh,
so some schools with Title I can use IXL independently and outside of the instructional day, but
That
as a
looks like
division, we don't use it. It's only used in some Title I schools.
Okay, that's why it's on the
Yeah,
application.
and very
Like a
few.
remediation.
Correct.
Yeah, so some of them are kind of designing remediation programs with that. And that's not the only thing, but it's part of that process, how they would,
I just was
Yeah.
confused about that.
Correct.
yes, no. And when we were doing all the work sessions, C&I was there, all the areas, learning support, Title I. So we really were trying to, bat the ball around as we were doing this to say, where C&I was like, can't have that as your kind of mainstay, but what are some other ways we can look at using this?
As far as I'm concerned, the sooner IXL goes completely away, the better off our kids are. Because I have spent many a year working with kids on,
Yeah.
Any other questions? So, where is the board as far as voting on the TSI? Are you comfortable taking a vote today, or do you want to defer to the business meeting?
I did not want to wait.
I don't want to either.
Okay, so-
I'm ready.
I'm
Okay.
comfortable.
We're good? All right.
I'm comfortable.
All right, may I have a motion to approve the TSI applications?
I move
Got
that,
it.
I move that we approve the TSI applications.
Got it. May I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none, Ms. Tanner, please call the roll.
Basine,
Aye.
DeCalagero,
Aye.
Martin. Aye. Paulson,
Aye.
Slaughter,
Aye.
Thomas. Buffalo.
Aye. There you go.
Thank you very much, y'all. I appreciate it.
First motion.
And we're going to go down to 4.01, future agenda items. If you recall, I attached a little chart to my memo emailed 2 weeks ago, kind of give you status of where we are based on your future agenda items. So I'm just opening it up if there's any additional future agenda items you would like to add to that.
I'd like for us to consider taking one of the, I know we have to move our BSBA training for a variety of reasons, but I'd like to ask us to consider one of those dates in February that I think all of us could attend and have an afternoon session devoted strictly to our norms and protocols. Or one of the dates where we all indicated we were available not to go to Charlottesville, but to come here and do an afternoon dedicated to working on our norms and protocols. I think February 26th was a date that was possible.
Well, we're going to go old school for a second. If the board would like to do that, we can check and see if we're still available on
Right,
February
right.
26th, because it could have changed. by
But there may have been dates where people couldn't go away for the whole day, but maybe they had time in the
Time to
afternoon.
come in during the evening to go over norms and protocols. Well, can everyone just check for me, please, Thursday, February 26th?
I'm sorry, can I?
Uh-huh.
Karen, did I register for something on February 26th with you? Was that the hot topic in Charlottesville? The 19th? Okay.
That was Title IX, virtual.
The 19th, I believe.
I don't have my work calendar with me,
Oh, okay,
so I wouldn't be able to check.
okay. No worries.
26.
So I'll just put tentatively February 26th, and
I'll
Ms.
get back
Thomas
with you.
What is time good for the group?
It does take a considerable amount of time, especially as we're
Yeah,
members and, with Ms. Slaughter and,
even go over what they are, yeah.
um,
And that's a Thursday, I know
encourage us
folks
to
work, so.
dedicate, yeah, because it's not just, it's the norms and protocols, code of ethics, all of that I think we need to really look at it as a package, that all of those key things that we do to start off and how we're going to operate as a team. Yeah. I would encourage us to start earlier if we can, because we haven't been able to finish it in previous sessions that we've had, because we've only dedicated, a limited number of hours to it.
Yeah.
So,
Well, I think what helped too will be some work on the front end, just making sure when we come that we're
have to
familiar what
review.
the documents actually are and say and what we're trying to accomplish. So,
2:00 be early enough? I just was thinking about.
and I'm just
work,
thinking of 2:00 for folks that work,
A full day.
so. Okay, so let's say tentatively, Thursday, February 26th at 2:00. And then Ms. Thomas, Dr. Martin, just let me know, and then I'll let everyone know the final verdict. That sounds good? All right. All right, anyone else?
So, I'm sorry. Go ahead, you got your hand up first. No, go ahead, I need to look at a date, so go ahead.
Okay. This is a different agenda topic, if that's, unless you wanted to talk about what we were. It's a different topic, okay. Dr. Pohl, I wanted to say, I appreciate and thank you for your proactive stance on questions and concerns I've raised around, the changes in immigration policy that, at the federal level, and the steps that we've taken as a district. One of the things, especially in light of the heightened activities that have been taking place across the country, one of the things that I feel is really important, and I've also heard from, lots of teachers too, and others in our district, is that we pass a resolution as a board, stating our position of, protecting our students and families first, from that type of immigration activity. And I know that's one thing I am proud of our district for, is that we've been so supportive and inclusive and all of the things, to make sure that our families and students feel safe. But I think that in light of what we're seeing happening, that what other steps can we take to make sure that our policies are, that we have strong protocols and policies and that everyone knows what they are. And that's the piece that I think that there is a lack of clarity around, is for everyone to know what our protocols and policies are. And so if you all would consider it, I would be happy to, I drafted something for consideration that I wanted to share with all of you, if you would be open to having it on the agenda at our business meeting. And, we could talk about it and give feedback. But if that's something that everyone was open to doing on this board, I'm just bringing it forward here for your consideration.
Would we talk about it in the workshop session of the business meeting or in the actual business meeting?
We could talk about it in the workshop portion of the business meetings, just so that everyone would have a chance to respond to it, or decision discussion. I mean, it could be there, or as agenda planning sees fit.
I'd like to read it
Yeah,
before
let's do some front-end work, and
Yeah.
let's send it out.
Okay.
And then we can, that's something that will of the board is. But yeah, it's not going to hurt to see the document and see how it can help us, how we handle this immigration issues in our schools. Everyone's on the same accord of what to do and how to do and what not to do and that kind of.
Right, and that's really the key piece, is everybody on the same page.
Cohesive in our messaging around that issue.
So, my apologies. Right now, on the 26th, I'm admin on call, so I can't leave the hospital until 8 p.m. I just sent a message to see if somebody could trade with me, so if I get that back, then I'll follow up.
Just get back.
It's okay, I can trade, hopefully, but we're,
I don't know, was there anything else? I think she's saying
to send it
to send it out, and that you all can
give some
let
feedback.
the
Yeah.
chair know whether you support.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
what I'm hearing.
And I'll put that language in when you just send it to me, and I'll send it out.
Okay.
Okay.
So during the budget presentation, Dr. Pohl, you mentioned an increase in students with disabilities from 11 to 17.4%.
17.7.
I'd like to know more information about that. Like what disabilities are we seeing more? Like the types, the categories, I should say, of disabilities. I'd like to have that breakdown and maybe be able to discuss that a little more, because that's a big jump for enrollment to be declining.
And that's over, I think that was a 4-year period.
Okay.
Would expect it to
To-
stay even or
Depends
go
what the state
down.
level, right? But
To
it-
level,
equal
or
to the
to
new
go
enroll-
down proportionally
But
with the lower
it
enrollment.
is interesting, because if I heard you correctly, you said 2021, it was at which, when enrollment, I mean, That was coming
Post-COVID,
back
correct.
post-COVID. And
Correct.
so, because I know years before that, it was higher. We were around 14, 15%.
Yeah, usually we
So-
have around 14, but still we're at 17%.
Yeah, I mean,
almost
no doubt.
18%,
Yeah, no
so-
doubt it's higher, but.
So, it's just, I don't want to be caught, the reason I mentioned that and emphasized it is I don't want to be caught in the, well, your enrollment's declining, your enrollment's declining. It is, but, our students with disabilities, even if their numbers might be staying level, making their percentage higher and higher. So we still need to make sure that we're funding that program properly.
Absolutely.
Right, Dr. Walters shaking her head over there, yes.
Right off the bat, the two biggest areas.
Do we have ABA in the schools?
Contra-
Come up to the-
I'm sorry.
You're
Yeah.
fine.
Evening.
The division does utilize some contract service provider, ABA. We do not, at this time, provide those services directly to students as student services, but we do utilize ABA therapists to consult and coach teachers, particularly in our classroom, self-contained classrooms for students with autism. We utilize them to facilitate professional development for teachers and staff that directly support those populations. And then, of course, there's no blanket statements in special education, so we tackle individual needs on a case-by-case basis.
So I'd like to, so thank you. I apologize for putting you on the spot, but I appreciate you being ready and willing to answer that. And then I think the other question for me is, how are our students, especially identified on the spectrum, progressing? How are they performing academically, and what areas are we seeing that they're still lacking in? And how effective is we have board certified ABA? Okay. And how,
BCBA's
Yes.
is who we contract with.
yeah, okay. How effective is it for them to be working with staff and educators and not necessarily the one-on-one with the students?
So
And you don't have to answer
Yeah,
that
I was
now.
like, if that makes when that makes the agenda. If it makes
That's
the-
what I was going
Yeah, I
to
was
say.
gonna say, you don't have to answer that
Yeah.
now, but it's just a question.
Absolutely be
Probably
prepared
part of
for it.
that mental health.
We have
Yeah.
to review
Yes.
the special ed
Every year,
plan,
the
too.
annual
Yeah, the
plan.
in
annual plan,
April.
too.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah.
I just really quickly wanted to say, your first question is a very broad question, and that would, outcomes pretty much will vary based on the students and the level of need, not necessarily the broad disability category. And then to your point about BCBA's training, it's highly specialized. Use contract services for that. I do not foresee that in the near future, not just Norfolk, but really any division being able to contract or provide enough BCBA's. And that is not necessarily considered a school service, not to say that it can't be supported. Certainly, as a future agenda item, I will follow up
Thank you.
at the pleasure of the board.
I appreciate it.
All right, thank you.
Right, well, may I have a motion to go into executive closed session?
I move that we go into executive closed session.
I second.
Thank you. Any discussion? Hearing none, Ms. Tanner, please call the roll.
Way to read the motion first.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, I'm ahead of myself.
Move that the school board go into a closed meeting pursuant to 2.2-3711A2 of the Code of Virginia, the Virginia Freedom of Information Act, for the discussion or consideration of disciplinary and any other matters concerning students of Norfolk Public Schools, where such discussion would involve the disclosure of information contained in a scholastic record. This meeting will involve discussion of scholastic and court records containing confidential information concerning students protected by the Virginia and federal laws in addition to the cited section of the Act. Basine?
Aye.
DeCalagero?
Aye.
Martin?
Aye.
Paulson?
Aye.
Slaughter?
Aye.
Thomas?
Aye.
Buffalo?
Aye.